Hey BookTube, it's Angie, I'm back. Now I'm going to knock out the Thanksgiving tag. And this one should be pretty quick. There's not a lot of questions to these, but I just thought it was fun. I originally saw this on Janie the Bookworms Buddies channel, and I think the original is through Fangirl City, so I will link those below. And I'm just going to jump in. So the first question is bread. What book is purely fluff and has no real plot line? For that one I said 13 Little Blue Envelopes by Maureen Johnson. Some of these questions were kind of hard because I remember reading them, but I don't have the books on me because I don't keep books that weren't that memorable to me. So a lot of these have been circulated out of my library. I still happen to have the copy of this, but it has been sitting in my trade box in the other room. So this one will be leaving shortly, but it's here long enough for me to do this tag. So to date, I have been pretty underwhelmed by Maureen Johnson's writing style. It's just, it might be just a little too contemporary and fluffy for my personal taste. So yeah, this was my fluff book because I liked the concept behind it. It just wasn't as good as I was hoping for me. It was just this girl like randomly running around the world with, you know, no sort of like parental contact. It was just like, oh, your aunt wants you to go around the world. Oh, okay, yeah, go to Europe, that's fine. Even though she's what, like 15 or something? I don't know. It got a little bit silly for me. Number 2 was Turkey. What book made you want to fall asleep? And I'll have to insert a picture because I don't have a copy of this one anymore. But the one that came to mind was, this is probably going to shock some people because I've heard rave reviews about this book all over BookTube. I was not a fan. And it's We Need to Talk About Kevin, which I think is by, is that Lionel Shriver wrote that, I think? Let me say, I was a fan of the movie adaptation. I thought the movie was really well done. The book was, and again, that was another one where I liked the concept, but the actual writing style I thought was so boring and heavy and just dense, and if I'm being totally honest, it struck me as pretentious as fuck in parts. It didn't do anything for me. It was a slog to get through for me. And I don't know, some people might say, well, you're not a mother, so you wouldn't get it. And that might be true. I might not be the right audience for it, but I thought it was boring as hell. Number 3 is Gravy. What book makes the whole series worth reading? This might be a little bit controversial to say this because I haven't technically read the rest of the series, but the one that came to mind was Sepulchre by Kate Moss. And the reason I picked this one was because I remember reading this one and loving it so much and not realizing till after I'd finished it that it was part of a series. I think this is actually book 2 of like 3 or 4, but it's perfectly fine as an standalone, because I didn't know it was a series until I went to, because I liked this book so much, I went to look up more by the author and found out it was a series that way. I was like, oh. So the reason I picked this one for that was I was thinking I loved this one so much that this one has to, even if I don't like the other 2, which I think would be insane because I really loved Kate Moss's writing, but on the off chance that I don't like the other ones in the series, I have to say this one would make the series worth reading. Number 4 is Stuffing. What book is stuffed full of action scenes? And the one that immediately came to mind was Altar of Bones by Philip Carter. And this is one of those ones where there's like a secret that gets exposed and one person has to run all around the world getting away from people that are chasing her. And yeah, this thing is full of chase scenes and fight scenes, and there's some sex scenes in there, and it's just like it almost felt like non-stop action to me. It felt like one of those action movies where, you know, in a minute there's going to be another big explosion, and then another, and then there's going to be chasing, and it like, this thing felt like a James Bond movie as far as like pace and plot kind of. So that's the one that came to mind for that. Number 5 is Mashed Potatoes. What book looked good and then wasn't? Gonna go controversial again here because this one's got a lot of love on BookTube, but I have to say The Duff by Kody Keplinger. I heard so many people talk that book up and rave about it, and I again liked the concept. The execution I thought was crap. I didn't think the writing was all that. I didn't think the dialogue was anything super special, and again, maybe a controversial thought, I didn't like the female character. I understand she got teased in the beginning of the book. I get that. But her reaction, I thought, was so overblown and immature because she just does not let it go. Even though throughout the entire book, one time after another, the guy is either apologizing to her, trying to talk it out, saying, do you want to talk about it? And what really bothered me about that book was the fact that he tries to apologize multiple times. He says, it was a shitty thing, that what I said, I'm sorry. He gives her opportunity to air out her feelings whenever they hook up. The thing that bothered me was she gives him crap about what he said, and then she hooks up with him, and then there are scenes where she smacks him because she feels guilty for sleeping with him because of what he said to her at the beginning of the book, and she just will not let it go. After he's given her multiple opportunities to hear his apology, to let her air out her feelings, she turns, in my opinion, she turned kind of emotionally abusive towards him. And I've not seen one review of BookTube that ever brought that aspect up. Like, I feel like I was the only one that got that feeling. I think she was really shitty towards him because he tried to redeem himself. And I've heard so many people rave about how strong she was and way to go for sticking up for yourself. I thought she was a little immature little shit for most of the book, and I was siding with him. So yeah, I liked it in the beginning. I liked the idea of it. I didn't think it was executed very well. So I'm gonna go with The Duff. Number 6 is the Cranberries. Oh no, I'm not a 90s kid. Number 6 is Cranberries. What book had the sweetest romance? And one of the ones that I thought of was Little Women, because I really love the little romance between Joe and Professor Bear, because I love Professor Bear because he's this really humble guy that doesn't think he's good enough for Joe and thinks that she's so talented, and what interest would she have in an older teacher guy. And I don't know, he just struck me as really sweet, and their romance goes into 2 other books and it just gets better. So that was one I thought of. But more recently, I was thinking The Time Traveler's Wife is a really good, sweet romance. Even though at times I remember when I was reading that being a little bit weirded out because he's a time traveler, so there are scenes where he's going back and meeting his wife as a little girl. And I don't know, something about like the thought of that was a little bit weird to me, because it's like a grown man and then he's talking to this little girl, but thinking this little girl is gonna grow up to be his wife, but she doesn't know it. I don't know. It's just like parts of it were like, it feels a little weird. But for their romance, for the most part, I thought was really sweet. And then the other one I thought of that was really sweet, but it's gonna break your heart, was Where the River Ends by Charles Martin. This has to do with a guy who finds out his wife is battling terminal cancer, and she gets to a point where she just doesn't want to be in the hospital anymore. She doesn't want to be hooked up to things and fighting to the last minute. And they used to go on a lot of river trips, river excursions and stuff, and she gets to a point where she's like, just take me down the river for one last trip. And so the whole book is like this trip they go on as a way to say goodbye. Like, they both know what's probably going to happen when they get to the end of the river. But they were such a sweet couple in this, and the way they look back on their relationship and the adventures they get into on this river trip. It goes back and forth between the like really sweet and really heartwarming to, oh my god, it's rough. Number 7 is Corn. What is the corniest book you've ever read? It's tough to think of one because, again, if I don't like a book, if I'm not impressed with it, it leaves my library pretty quickly and then I forget about it. But the one I could think of that I've read recently that was a bit much for me was the Let It Snow compilation. Again, Maureen Johnson was in that, John Green, Lauren Miracle. Those stories, like, it was cute because they were during the holidays, but they were just like a little too perfectly sugar sweet, wrapped up, put together. It was just a little too sweet for me. Number 8, Green Beans. What book is too long and needs to be shortened? Might be controversial again, but I have to say Moby Dick. Not saying it's a terrible book, but I'm saying there are passages that we could have wrapped up a little bit. It's like maybe we didn't need so many detailed descriptions about virtually nothing. I don't need a textbook into the whaling industry. I wanted to know about the hunt for the conflict between the whale and Captain Ahab. That's what I went into that for. And I don't mind some background pieces, but holy hell, that book just went on and on and on. And it kept like veering back into that to where I was just like, just stick to the story. So yeah, I could say a lot could have been cut out of Moby Dick, but that's probably going to upset some people because I've heard a lot of people go, that story's beautiful. Again, not saying it's a bad book, I'm just saying it could have been brought in a little bit. Number 9 is Pumpkin Pie. What book do you read to get out of a reading slump? Again, I read Little Women because I really connect with the character of Joe. Ever since I read it as a kid, I just really connected with Joe. Saw a lot of my own personality in her. So it's just a good, warm, fuzzy book. And I don't know if I'm extra drawn to it because I don't have any sisters and I don't know what that's like to grow up with that. And so maybe I kind of live vicariously as far as like having a sisterhood through that book. I don't know. So that one, and yeah, I just go back to writing that I really admire. So I'll go back to classics like Louisa May Alcott, and or the one I also really like to gravitate towards is D.H. Lawrence, who's famous for The Rainbow and Lady Chatterley's Lover. D.H. Lawrence is one of my all-time favorite writers, just because I love the way he constructs sentences, his descriptors, his dialogue, the feel he gives you for things, just the way he creates environments and moods without saying a lot. I always find that he just seems to have a real finesse for saying just the right amount of words you need to feel like you're in that experience without going overboard and ruining it. So yeah, I don't get into a ton of reading slumps. I will every once in a while, but if I get into a really, really bad one where I just can't get into anything, I find if I just read like maybe even little snippets of his stuff here and there, just to remind myself of what really amazing writing feels like, it'll inspire me to pick up reading again. And then the last question is, dog or cat, what is your favorite Thanksgiving food that you would steal from the table? That one was easy because I have 2 big favorites when it comes to Thanksgiving. I can take or leave the turkey and other stuff. The 2 that I always eye, which is funny because I'm grown up now, I'm the one that makes Thanksgiving dinner, so it sounds kind of funny to like steal it off the table. But the 2 I love reaching for are mashed potatoes during dinner and pecan pie for dessert. Pecan pie, other than key lime pie, but I don't eat a ton of key lime pie this time of year, although I do always get one around my birthday time next month, because it is one of my favorite pies. But around November, I always like to gravitate towards pecan pie because it is one of my favorites. And I would say those, and then the other one I thought of is I make a thing at Thanksgiving every once in a while. I don't make it every year, but it's something that my mom always gets excited about, even though it's really simple to make. It's only like 3 ingredients or something, but she gets pumped for it, and it's, what is it called? I think it might be called a cornbread casserole or corn hash casserole or something. I'm forgetting what it's called. But essentially all it is like, I can't think of the exact recipe right now, but it's pretty much just like Jiffy cornbread mix and creamed canned corn. And then, I forget, there's like a dairy product that's in there. I can't remember if it's like sour cream or cream cheese. I want to say it's cream cheese, maybe. I think. And that's pretty much all that goes into it. Sometimes I mix it up and I'll add like sweet peppers and stuff in there. But anytime, and then you just stick it in the oven, bake it. And anytime I make that, my mom gets all giddy. Oh, I love this stuff. And it is really good. It comes out super soft. And the cream from the cream corn makes the cornbread mix really soft and moist, and it's awesome. So that would be another one I would steal a lot of. And that's it. Those are the 2 tags I wanted to do here, and I guess that's it. So we'll see you in the next video. Happy holidays, you guys.